I just don't want to forget to say it. For those who don't know, I think most everybody probably does, but just in case you don't know, Ray's son passed away this week. Ray and Benita's son, suddenly, and then as a result, Benita had what appears to be a mild heart attack, or at least some major stress that they called it broken heart syndrome because of it. And so she's actually been in the hospital now 2 days because of it. And so I left a card on the back there for you to sign. I think that would be a blessing to them. And I also ask that you could be a blessing personally. If you're able to, write them a personal note or call them and text them and let them know that you're praying for them. I know that would be a help to him because this is a difficult time. And also the desire is that Ray and Benita would seek God's wisdom in the matter, because there are some things that are going on in their lives that maybe this is an opportunity for them to hear what God wants them to do in their life. So pray for them in that. Second thing, I've ordered boxes. I've got 3 of them because I had 3 kids just buy shoes the other day. But I'm going to hand these out at the end of the service. I'll put them out here. I just wanted, so I didn't forget to point them out. This is a list of things that they suggest to put in those Christmas shoe boxes that we talked about last Sunday night. And they've got an age range in each one. So they have 3 sets of age ranges for boys and girls. You have the ages 2 to 4, ages 5 to 9, and ages 10 to 14. And they give you different things that they say that should be in there, and you make the most of your box, basically, is what you do. You try to pack it as full as you can, obviously so the lid can still close, but you pack it full, and then they open it up. There are very specific things they say do not put in there. Putting in toy guns, a big no-no. Putting in toy bow and arrow, big no-no. Anything of war related, they say don't do because of just the nature of where they're sending this to and all of that. Not to have any kind of wrong thing that might be insinuated out of that. And then no liquids go in there. And that also includes toothpaste. Don't put toothpaste in there. No candy gets put in there. No coffee gets put in there, because you see what happens with children who bring coffee. But they do have a bunch of things that they do tell you to bring. So I don't see on this here what not to bring, but those are the things specifically they say do bring. So what I would suggest, if you're interested and want to be part of that, I'm going to look at doing 6 boxes as opposed to 5, because we could do 2 of each kind. We could do a boy and a girl for each age range and work that way in there. So they have a bunch of stuff in there, and I've printed out a bunch of these for you to be able to look at that on that. So that said, I will give that out. And there's a third announcement tonight, just because people have asked me, and I've been doing a lot of my own personal research. I'm going to show about a 20-minute video before we actually get into the normal part of the service that deals with the legal matters that are going on in our country regarding forced vaccinations against people's will. And I got some stuff that you might want to take with you to be able to be in a help and know how to handle that. If that's an issue you want to know how to deal with, and it's done from a Christian perspective, I think it'll be an encouragement to you. So I will show that to you tonight. About 20 minutes is what it takes, 23 minutes. And it's done by a man named Matt Staver, who is with Liberty Counsel. And everything he does is pro bono. If you've ever heard of him before, you might listen to Christian radio, you'll probably hear him mentioned quite often. He's on there a lot. So, but I think that'll be an encouragement to you. If you're interested in looking into that, I'm just offering you the opportunity. I can't tell you what your viewpoint should be on it, but I can at least give you something to think on it. So, all right, with that said, let's get into our lesson. All right, I'm going to ask that you be ready to be in the book of Isaiah. Now, if you remember, we are jumping back. I know Fred the last week, spent some time doing the first lesson of the of this quarter, and it really was a first lesson in a lot of things. He had to jump back and do some finagling around, trying to put details together and reading names and all that kind of stuff. And so this might be a little easier. Maybe this would have been the better lesson for Fred to have heard or got to work with, as opposed to the one he had last week, which required a little bit of brain power that was not usually used in these kinds of things. Not saying Fred's dumb. I'm saying it was hard for me because I had to do it with kids, with young people, to try to make sense of what that passage was talking about. So there are those difficult things in the Bible, aren't there? And some that just take a lot more thinking power as opposed to some that are just a straight up story. Okay, well, let's go and look. Let's look in. Well, just be ready in Isaiah 36 is where I'm going to ask you to be ready for, and we will start working our way through. Now, last time we talked about Joash, who became the king, right? And what's significant about the fact that Joash became the king? There's a few things that are majorly significant about this guy. So he started out as a child. He's the youngest king in history for Judah. How old was he? 7 when he became the king. And he was raised in the temple and basically was raised under a priest. Actually, not just any priest, the high priest, Jehoiada. And Jehoiada taught him the ways of the Lord. But as soon as Jehoiada passed off the scene, what does he do? Yeah, he turns his heart away from God and becomes basically doing that which is evil. So we could maybe describe King Joash in this regard. He was not a leader. He was a follower. He was a follower. He followed the leadership of men rather than following the leadership of God, and thus he was not a good leader over his own people. He appeared to be for a time, didn't he? To be a good king, but that kind of is one of those things we get reminded of, is that we can start good, or at least appear to be good in the eyes of people, and then fall away whenever the influence is gone, or when other influences come. So, and that did happen there. Now, today we're going to look at another king, and this is one of the good kings. This is one that we'd say was a leader. And we see that leadership demonstrated in times of great difficulty. And his name was Hezekiah. Hezekiah actually followed Ahaz, who was not a model king in any way. Ahaz followed after false gods, even to the point of having his own son burned in the fire, having offered it up to a false god. But Hezekiah is one of the ancestors of David. He fits in the line of the kings of Judah. And one of the things we do see about Hezekiah is that he has an extremely strong devotion to God. In fact, 2 Kings 18:5 records that there's no king like him. No king like him in all the kings of Judah before or after. This is a guy that you would wish was your leader. That's the kind of guy he is. And so we pick up the storyline in the text today, and 8 years have passed since the Assyrian captivity of the northern kingdom. The northern kingdom being Israel. And Assyria has now a new leader. His name is Sennacherib. And with Israel out of the picture, the Assyrians now turn their sight to Judah. And the main reason why they turn their sight to Judah is because Ahaz has rebelled and refused to give money, tribute to the Assyrians to keep them basically from attacking. And so now they are beginning to make plans to come after the southern kingdom. And it's at this time that Hezekiah ends up becoming the king. Actually, it was not Ahaz. I'm sorry. It was Hezekiah that rebelled against the tribute, refused to stop giving the tribute like Ahaz had been doing previously. And so then Sennacherib says, all right, well then we're going to come after you and we're going to conquer you, just like we did the northern kingdom. So that's where we find ourselves. So we need to pick up Isaiah 36, and we're going to see this account played out. And I'm just going to read the whole chapter here, Isaiah 36, and I need some readers here. So 1 to 5, Bill 6 to 10, 6 to 10, Esther 11 to 15, Wayne 16 to 20, David, and then 21 through 22. All right, Darla, you get the easy read. That's the one that has all the names. I don't think it does, but anyways, go ahead. Sennacherib, Rabshakeh, Lachish, highway, just a road. Eliakim, okay. Okay, first off, just to kind of see what's going on so you understand, you have what you would have what you would call intimidation going on. You got Rabshakeh being sent by Sennacherib coming up to the gates of the city while they're sitting there locked up in the city of Jerusalem, refusing to surrender, and they're coming out basically saying, if you surrender, we'll help you. If you surrender, we'll take care of you. Why are you leaning on other nations to help you? And the Lord told us to come after you. Things like that. Okay? That's what's going on. It's intimidation. It's trying to get them to surrender. Okay? All right. Go on. Yeah. Now, did you see what else that they asked that Rabshakeh wouldn't do? That he would stop speaking in the Hebrew language because everybody else is hearing it. Does he do that? No, he wants everybody to hear and intimidate all of them. And now he's basically saying, if you're going to stay in here, you're going to basically be forced to eat your own waste and drink your own waste. That's what you're going to have for food. Enjoy, because you're going to run out. That's what he's saying, and that's what he's threatening, and he's trying to, again, intimidate to get them to surrender. Okay? 16.
Hearken not to Hezekiah, for thus saith the king of Assyria, make an agreement with me by a present, and come out to me, and eat ye every one of his vine, and every one of his fig tree, and drink ye every one of the waters of his own cistern, until I come and take you away to a land like your own land, a land of corn and wine, a land of bread and vineyards. Beware lest Hezekiah persuade you, saying, the Lord will deliver us. Have any of the gods of the nations delivered his land out of the hands of the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of Hamath and Arpad? Where are the gods of
Sepharvaim.
And have they delivered Samaria out of my hand?
Now, what's Samaria a reference to? The northern kingdom. Those are the people that supposedly trusted in God. Okay?
Who are they among all the gods of these lands that have delivered their land out of my hand, that the Lord should deliver Jerusalem out of my hand?
Okay, Carla. Okay, so let's kind of work through this here. I know we took a little bit of time working our way through here. So the king of Assyria, he has sent his field commander basically to the army of King Hezekiah. And what is he doing outside of the walls? Basically threatening them, telling them to give up. If you give up, I will give you things that no other nation would ever give you if they were helping you. If you give up, I will let you go eat of your own vineyards and drink of your own. I mean, he's trying, and he's basically telling them, but if you don't, you're going to have misery that's coming your way. And he's saying it in such a way that everybody knows what he's saying. He's not speaking in the Syrian tongue, where only a few people would know what that language even is. Everybody he wants to hear, so everybody be intimidated. Why? Because then they put pressure on the king to let them to surrender. Yeah, he said, until I take you to a better land. Yeah, like that's going to motivate me to want to leave, right? To surrender. 8 years. Yeah, because Ahaz, the king before him, surrendered to Assyria. That's actually what's prompting this thing, is that Ahaz had surrendered, but Hezekiah takes over as the new king and says, that's done. We're not paying any more money to them. And then that's what causes them to come. And in the process, as they worked their way back in, they started taking out all the cities, all the little towns, villages of Judah, and now they get to the capital, Jerusalem, where basically everybody has run into to hide. And that's where, that's what's going on outside the wall. Here's a thought here. Is Hezekiah leading them to have confidence in another nation? No. That's what other nations would have done. That's what Israel has done. That's even what Judah in times past has done with enemies, relying on other nations to help them with their enemies that are coming against them. But that's not Hezekiah. Hezekiah, as I showed you at the beginning, or said to you at the beginning, is a man who was a leader and a man who follows God and trusts God even in the most difficult of circumstances. And this would be one of them. This would be one of them. When you've got enemies sitting outside your walls, and they're bigger and more powerful than you, and they've already shown that they can destroy people as your size and bigger, and you're here saying, I'm trusting God, and we're not surrendering. That takes a lot of courage, a lot of trust. Okay? So let's work our way a little bit more. I'm jumping out of the passage real quick, but I want to, because we don't have a lot of time this morning, I do want to work our way through an activity real quick. This is just more reading than it is anything. But pass it around real quick. It is good for you to look at this. And what we're going to look at is looking at really, there's this passage and others around it it's said 3 different times in the Bible, this event that plays out. You have what we just have read out of Isaiah. You'll also have one out of 2 Chronicles, and you have another one out of 2 Kings. And they're all the same event, but they tell us some different details in each one of them where you've got them in this situation. Jerusalem walled up, having this Assyrian army encamped outside of the wall of Jerusalem, and Hezekiah leading the nation to trust in God. So be ready here. I'm going to need some readers, or we'll just kind of divide it out again as we read here. So let me read it to you. It says, the account of Hezekiah is recorded in 3 places in Scripture. Isaiah 36 and 37 is almost identical to 2 Kings 18 and 19, while 2 Chronicles 32 gives us some extra information. Use the following passages to describe Hezekiah's dependence on God. So let's look at the 2 Chronicles passage. Go back a little bit in your Bible in 2 Chronicles chapter 32. And if somebody just read verses 1 to 8 there, that'd be good. Okay, Wayne, go ahead. Okay, so let's look at some of the things that we didn't see in Isaiah, that what Hezekiah actually did. He first off stopped the waters. Now, what does that mean when it says he stopped the waters? So they wouldn't have water, and means by which they could stay out there and keep out there without having to bring in their own provision, right? They're not going to come drink our water and starve us out. So he stopped the waters. In fact, you might remember that in the days of Jesus, it actually refers to, there was a line that got brought into the city of Jerusalem by Hezekiah that was still there being used. Hezekiah's waters, or his conduit, or his something along those lines. I forget what they call it. But he had actually reverted the waters to the city of Jerusalem, so they had water that would be a source of help in that. What else did he do? Fixed the walls of the city and built them higher, right? Built them up to the towers, yeah. Then what else did he do? Well, before that one's a good one, but what did he do before that? Made more weapons. So he's intending to fight, even though he's going to trust God. He's telling us, we're getting a view of how he depends on God. He is going to fight as though it all depends on him, but he's going to trust as though it all depends on God. Right? That's the way that's supposed to be done. That's exactly what he's doing. That's, I would say, in a biblical sense, the way we're supposed to live. We live as though it all depends on us, but at the same time, we trust as though it all depends on him. Does that make sense? Okay, and so that's exactly what he's doing here. And then the last one, what did he do? Encouraged his people. Yeah. Did you notice there he said something that was similar to a previous prophet? He said, there are more of them with us than are with them. Does anybody remember a previous prophet saying something like that? It was Elisha. Remember Elisha and his servant that he had? And it says that Syria had come and they were trying to capture Elisha because every time they had plans, Elisha would go and tell the king, and the king knew exactly what they were doing in advance. And they said, we figured out why in the world they're able to figure our plans out is they got a prophet in there that hears the secrets that are told behind locked doors. And so they went to go try to capture Elisha, and you remember his servant comes out and says, oh, you need to see what's going on outside. And then he says, oh, there's no reason to be afraid. There's more with us than there are with them. And he did the same thing, and then it says he opened his eyes and he saw the angelic army surrounding. And you remember what ends up happening with that army actually they're all struck blind, and then he just leads them to the king of Samaria, in Israel, leads them there. And the king goes, should I kill them all? And he goes, no, just feed them and send them home. And it was sort of a way of saying, they just need to remember who we are and what power we have. And it says, and they no longer bothered Israel from that day forward because of how they got humbled and protected, even though they should have been killed. Right? And so that's the similar statement. And I like it. That's Hezekiah's attitude. God's with us. We have no reason. They have an arm of the flesh. And what does he say we have? We have the Lord our God. Right? Man, that's a king that's a leader right there. That's the king that you would want to have, right? As a king. All right. Now let's go to the 2 Kings passage. 2 Kings 19. And we're going to break this one up because it is a longer one. 1 to 20, so let's go ahead. 1 to 5. Bill, 6 to 10. Darla, 11 to 15. Esther, then 16 to 20. All right, Fred. 2 Kings 19. Starts, and it came to pass. Are you in 1 Kings or 2 Kings? A little bit further. No. And it came to pass. No, chapter 19. 2 Kings is chapter 19. There you go. Good. Mm-hmm. He said it's identical. It's almost identical. Isaiah's in this one. Yep. To Isaiah. Hezekiah. Own land. Own land.
So Rabshakeh returned and found the king of Assyria warring against Libnah, for he had heard that he was departed from
Lachish.
And when he heard say of Terekah, king of Ethiopia, behold, he is come out to fight against thee. He sent messengers again unto Hezekiah, saying, Thus shall ye speak to Hezekiah, king of Judah, saying, Let not thy God, in whom thou trustest, deceive thee, saying, Jerusalem shall not be delivered into the hand of the king of Assyria.
Okay. Sennacherib. Okay, so let's kind of gather this one. This tells us some more details that we didn't see in either of the other ones. Primarily, who is King Hezekiah looking to? We understand God, but who's he getting counsel from? From Isaiah. And he's seeking Isaiah's wisdom about what he's supposed to do, because Isaiah is, after all, the prophet of the Lord. And then comes Rabshakeh with that letter from Sennacherib and actually gives it to his men on the wall. And it's basically saying surrender. It's the same thing we heard Rabshakeh saying, that your gods did not, the other gods of these nations did not deliver them out of our hands, and your God won't either. And I like it. What does it say Hezekiah did? He went into the temple of the Lord, and what did he do with that letter? He laid it down before the Lord and says, you need to read that, basically. So this is what he said. And he's come here and he's mocking you. That's a good thing. You know, whenever you can do that with the Lord and say, here's my problem, Lord, you need to see it right here. Now, he knows everything. He knows every detail about everything. Nothing is occurring to him. You know, I didn't know that. He knows everything. But he does delight in that our kind of attitude, in the sense that we would bring things to him as though they are brand new to him. And cast them at his feet and say, here's my problem, please take care of it. Maybe say it this way. You, being a parent, might know that your kids love you, but don't you like it when they tell you they do? It's the kind of same thing, I think, with God. He knows your problems before they ever even came to you, but he wants you to bring them to him in that sense. And there's this kind of relationship. And after he gets done praying, who comes to Hezekiah and affirms that his prayers have been heard? Isaiah. Isn't that good? The Lord has heard your prayers, which is sort of a way of saying, and he's going to deal with this. What you're doing is right. You're trusting in me to take care of you. I have heard. I know you trust in me, so I will answer. Now let's get to the answer. Go back to Isaiah 37. And we're going to read verses 21 to 38. So if I can get 21 to 25. Fred, 26 to 30. Well, good luck. You ain't going to miss it. Okay, and then 31 to 38. I'll give that as a full one for somebody. Let's do that. Wayne, 31 to 38. Yep. Okay, start us off. Yep. Okay, 31 to 38. Yep. Hmm. How much is that, by the way? 104 score and 5,000. What's 4 score? 80. And then 5,000. 185,000 were killed in one night. Okay, go ahead. I like that. When they arose, they were all dead. Yeah. When they woke up, they were all dead. They woke up dead. Okay. Okay, so let's kind of, I know there's a lot of little details in there. Look at verse 21 for a moment. Why did God say he's responding? Because he prayed against me. He says, I've heard your prayer. That's a real simple answer. You have not because God says, I'm answering because you prayed. I'm doing this because you prayed. Maybe you're complaining about the fact that things just don't always work out your way. Maybe you should pray about it. Interesting. Interesting, simple solution to a lot of things, huh? Is just ask God, talk about it to him. According to verse 35, why was God going to save Jerusalem? Now, this is a different motive as well, but let's look at it. For David's sake and for his own sake. So let's talk about David's sake. He brought that one up first. So what's David's sake? What's he meaning by that? Yes, he's keeping a promise that he made to David in that whole lineage. He's not going to let this city be taken because he won't let that promise be broken. Now, he does later let it get taken, doesn't he? But does the promise get broken? He still preserves the line even in that time. But the second one is for his own sake. What does that mean? What does that look like? What is he trying to express there? To show him who's God and who's not. Yeah, who's more powerful here. Yeah. And so this is really for God's glory in that. And by the way, did you notice there that it said the angel of the Lord went forth? Look at what angel of the Lord it is that did it. All caps. So it was God who came in their midst. Whoever that is in manifestation form, it wasn't just an angel from the Lord in the sense of that he sent like Gabriel or something or Michael. It was himself that went and did this. Should be. Capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D. Verse 36. You see it? Doesn't do that in yours? No. Maybe you scratch it out and write it in there right. So what's it saying there? God got involved. Yeah, anytime you see it all caps, it's a way of saying, even though yours doesn't say it, it's supposed to. And then you see the angel of the Lord coming into the Exodus time in the Passover and all of that, and it mentions that it was, when I see the blood, I will pass over. It's God doing it, not just some angel sent from God. So there's these references that do help us see that that is who this is. And there's multiple like that in the Bible. So yeah, so if you see it in all caps, it's his manifestation. If you see it capital L and then lowercase O-R-D, it's an angel from him. It's sort of the way the writers I don't know why they significantly did it this way, but it's one of the ways of saying they were making it clear who it was that actually showed up. Yes. Yeah. Yes, it's not angel, it's Lord. Capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D. They might make it a little capital, but it is a capital in that sense. A capital A, capital N, capital G. No, they don't do that. Yeah, it doesn't capitalize he and all of that when it's talking about God. That's just different. Angel, by the way, this is not in my notes, and we are maybe just taking a sideshow for a moment. Angel doesn't mean just floating and flapping wings creatures. Angel, the word means messenger from the Lord. And again, it doesn't necessarily, did you know that in some sense it might be when it says there in the book of Revelation, it talks about the angel into the church at Laodicea, angel into the church at Smyrna, angel of the church at Thyatira. People actually believe that that's a reference to the pastor, the messenger, the one who's giving the message of the word of the Lord to the people. Not necessarily that each church has its own angel. Though it may, I don't know that. It's just, that's because the word is used interchangeably to mean different things. So it could very well be that. Okay. All right. So what ends up happening that night? 185,000 end up being slain. Syria didn't want to come back against this king anymore and against this nation anymore. And what ended up happening to Sennacherib when he comes back home? He gets killed. Yes, by his own children. I guess. I don't know what was the deal, but it was sort of God's way of, and the reason why it's put in there is to say that God is dealing with this man. He dealt with his army, and now he dealt with him personally. And he dealt with him, did you see where he dealt with him at? In the house of his God. Significant? Yes. Because that's what he was trusting in, and God said, I'm greater than your God, and I will defeat you in your own God's house. So, major significance. Yeah. Yeah. So that's something to remember, is that God does take it personal whenever we mock him. When anybody mocks him. Say, well, he just lets people do it all the time. I remember hearing somebody say, and I may have read it to you as an illustration one time, but I remember hearing somebody, he'd get up, who's an atheist, he got up and said, I'm giving God to the 15 minutes to come strike me dead. And he starts cursing his name, and he's saying it right in front of all this Christian man. And he says, see, your God doesn't exist. He didn't strike me dead. He says, the problem is you forgot that my God is patient longer than 15 minutes. And he gives fools opportunities longer than they deserve. So, yeah. So you just got to remember that. God doesn't necessarily go in our time and what we expect, or even in those who would provoke God in their time. He goes in his time, but he will get the glory out of it all when he does. All right. Number one. What does a sincere prayer to God like Hezekiah's demonstrate about a person? Absolute trust. It is. It's not like, please, God, I hope you will answer. It is this attitude of, I know that you hear, and I'm going to trust in you, and I'm bringing every detail. Did you even notice his confidence in the fact whenever the news that Rabshakeh brought up and Sennacherib brought up says, oh, well, all these other nations, they fell, and they were trusting in their God. You remember did you hear what his confidence was? Yeah, they were trusting in gods that don't exist. That's why they fell. I'm trusting in a God who's all-powerful, who made everything. Number two, what paradox do we find in praying to a God who is sovereign? We talk about sovereign meaning has control over everything. Paradox means why it appears opposite. It appears like a contrast. Already knows all the problems and can handle all the problems. Yeah. We're asking the God who has control of everything, right? To do something on our behalf. And really, it's sort of like I was saying, it's a privilege that God gives us to be involved in that sovereign work. We're not sovereign, but God invites us into his sovereignty, if you will, in affecting his plans and purposes. Does that make sense? Why do you have trouble with that? That was a picture. That's a picture. You want to see the God who shows up like that, go to Isaiah chapter 6, and you see him in the temple, train flowing out of the temple, and what do you see flying around him? Cherubs. The God that sits among the cherubs. It may not necessarily be that he's talking about the one right there in the temple, because I think even they understood that. Anybody who was a godly man understood that was symbolic. Because even Solomon said that. He said when he was building the temple, he says, the God who we are making this house for, he says, the heavens can't even contain you, let alone this little house we're building. So he understood that. And I believe Hezekiah understood that. And that was what he was referring to. The God who dwells on his throne. Okay? Number 3, what is the connection between understanding God's character and offering prayers to him? What is the connection between understanding God's character and offering prayers to him? Okay. knowing who he is affects our prayers, right? If you think God doesn't care about anything, obviously you're not going to pray to him at all. If you don't think God is holy, you're not going to ask for holy things. If you don't think God is righteous, you're not going to ask for righteous things. You're not going to be involved in asking those things that fit who he is. Does that make sense? So if you're going to have effective prayer life, you also should have effective Bible life, Bible reading life. Isn't that correct? Because that's how your prayers are guided, is by what you understand of him. And what you understand of him is what you find in this book, not what you listen to on the internet or hear on TV shows, Touched by an Angel or whatever. That's an old show. Make up your own version of God there and pray that way. That's hypocrisy. That's what, the children of Israel did in the time of the judges, right? Worship God according to their own way. Make it up. Yeah. Number 4, should we always expect a dramatic answer to prayer, as we saw with Hezekiah? Not necessarily. Sometimes, has anybody ever noticed that if you've got an answer to prayer, that sometimes you missed it until after the event actually happened? Yeah, and how in the world, I didn't even see that. God was answering what I had asked for specifically, and it wasn't until maybe a day or two later you realized God answered what you asked for. There have been times like that for me, and then there have been times I knew right on the spot the prayer was being answered. I could see it. It was an amazing answer. No, I haven't seen 185,000 people killed for me. That hasn't happened for me. Probably hasn't happened for any of you either. No, I haven't prayed. God, strike all those people dead in Washington, D.C. No, I'm just joking. But no, I have not seen a prayer like that, or have seen a prayer answered like that, and nor have I prayed that in a real sense. But you got what I mean. God does show himself in powerful ways, and sometimes it's in quiet ways. And then sometimes he doesn't answer at all, or the lack of answer is really an answer. No, that's not what I'm going to do. Your kids ever come to you and ask you for something when they're young and you tell them no? I mean, you'd be a dumb parent if you said yes to everything they asked you for, wouldn't you? That wouldn't be a very good parent. But that's our God in the sense that he knows what's good in that regard. Yes, no. His own time, his own way. And for his own glory. Number 4, should we always... okay, I asked that one. Number 5, how has prayer changed since Hezekiah's day? There is a difference. Yes, we do. Those are still around. Let's go a little broader. We don't have the what? The temple. Yeah, you don't have to go to a temple and pray. Not in that sense, right? Because you have access regardless of whether you're in Jerusalem or any other place, right? Remember Jesus said it? I actually talked about it on Sunday morning last week. He says the hour has come where those that are going to worship him are not worshiping him in Jerusalem, but they worship him in spirit. There's this sense in which they can worship him anywhere they're at. They can talk to him and walk with him and have that kind of close relationship. Now, hold on for a second. Does that mean that only in that time could they only pray in the temple? No. But there is, when you do see them praying. Let me give you an example. Daniel. Temple's gone, and he's praying, but you know what direction he prays? Toward where the temple used to be. Do you remember Jonah in the whale? Where does he pray toward and say God answered from? His temple in Jerusalem. So there was this almost like they expected it was that sense that that's where prayers be answered from. He's not bound to that city. You get that, what I mean? He's not bound to that building. The building doesn't even exist anymore. Yeah. Well, because it was still bound to that land. That land is not where the focus is anymore. The focus is the whole world. And it always has been, in a sense, his focus, that the entire world would be saved. Israel was just the point from where the message of truth would come from. Yes. Temple was the building that the Jews had, or the tabernacle. They had the movable temple for a time, and the temple was the actual place that was built in Jerusalem that would be the permanent place. And it was a reference, it was a place that God himself would take up residence in some bit of a form, in a physical form. Huh? No, there's more than one temple. You had Solomon's temple, then it gets destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar. Then you have the temple of Zerubbabel that's built. It's just called Zerubbabel's temple. It was the temple that was built during the time of Ezra and Nehemiah. Then you have the third temple called Herod's temple, and that's where Herod, a pagan king, takes Zerubbabel's temple and kind of remodels it. He did what sort of Fred did with his old trailer house. He built around it and then tore it down as he was building around it, and it took 40 years to do that. And so, in a sense, there's been 3 temples in that regard. All in the same place, though. Before, the tabernacle wasn't. It was in different places. In fact, it was before Jerusalem. It was in a place called Shiloh, where they left it for a long time until God brought judgment upon that area. And then David was actually the one who brought the tabernacle to Jerusalem. So, yeah.
How did Noah know which way to pray when he was in the inside of the beast?
Noah wasn't in the inside the beast. Jonah was. He said that the Lord answered from his temple. I doubt he knew exactly which direction was east or west or north or south. Yeah. Probably didn't know that. He didn't have a compass in there. It probably stunk. Yeah, but he said he answered out of the temple. Yeah. And it could also be a reference to the fact that God himself does still have a temple, doesn't he? His temple is not physical, built with hands. It's a temple in the heavenly place, right? And so in that sense, there is a temple in that regards. All right, last one. That's it. That's all I got. So, all right, we are done. We finished in time. All right, let's go ahead and pray. I'm going to ask Brother Wayne if you can pray for us.